Virginia does not have as many amusement parks as other states, but they have two heavy hitters in Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Kings Dominion. These are two of the better parks in the country for roller coasters. Between them, you have a diverse lineup including a Giga Coaster, multiple large-scale B&Ms, and several wood coasters. So in this video, I will rank the state's top 20 roller coasters. Before starting the countdown, I want to note that this list will also include a few defunct coasters I experienced over the years. I also have reviews for several coasters in this list, including each of the ones in the top 7. Starting off this list at number 20 is Woodstock Express at Kings Dominion. This junior wood coaster is great for kids. You have a few weak pops of airtime plus a smooth ride. It's approachable for younger guests, but it is just enough to keep adults engaged too. Number 19. Zapple at Kings Dominion. This mock wild mouse is one of the lesser common large park models. This means it starts with a sizable and zippy drop. The main layout has the usual series of hairpin turns. You'll get some good laterals here. The downside with this version is that the finale lacks the usual series of bunny hills. Up next is where I would have placed Hurler at Kings Dominion. This is a hard one to place. The version of Hurler in its final years rose similarly to the Carowinds version. It was a slow and shaky mess. This spot reflects those experiences. But when I first rode this coaster in 2006, it had recently been retracked and was a shockingly good ride. It was both smooth and fast, as the trim on the first drop did not engage. Every single bunny hill delivered nice airtime. While I miss that version of Hurler, I have to admit the ride that replaces a far superior experience. Number 18. Reptilian at Kings Dominion. This mock bobsled was rethemed for the 2022 season as part of the new Jungle Expedition area. The ride experience is unchanged, but the orange color scheme is quite unique for a bobsled. Most of the coaster is pretty tame, but the transition into the final helix is pretty quick and offers a bit of weightlessness. Just make sure to lean forwards because the train will rattle down the slatted trough, as with the other mock bobsleds. Number 17. Racer 75 at Kings Dominion. The former Rebel Yell wood coaster got a ton of track work recently, so it is running smoothly. But despite all those bunny hills, Racer 75 does not have much airtime. The only moment now is the entry into the far turnaround up front, but it at least really launches you skyward. It has been a while since I've gotten a racing ride due to staffing, but this element really adds a lot to the outward leg because the two tracks are in close proximity. Number 16. Anaconda at Kings Dominion. This aero multi-looper gets a lot of flack, but it has some redeeming qualities. It has a cool location over the water, then the first half is quite good. The underwater tunnel is nice, and then you have a forceful vertical loop and sidewinder. The second half starts off awkwardly though. The mid-course saps the ride of all its speed, and then you crawl through these elevated pretzel turns. The transitions are awfully designed, so watch your head here. The two corkscrews are a return to glory because you at least get some hang time from the minimal speed. Number 15. Backlot Stunt Coaster at Kings Dominion. This is one of the better themed coasters at a Cedar Fair park. The effects in this one are often broken, but you still have some nice visuals heading past police cars, traveling through parking garages, and carving through a sewer. Then you have some forces too. This premier coaster starts with an okay launch, and then you have a long and shockingly forceful helix. It's an automatic gray out for me with the sustained Gs. The rest of the coaster has a few small pops of airtime along the route. Number 14. Tumbili at Kings Dominion. This new for 2022 coaster was the big new investment for the Jungle Expedition area. I love how it was incorporated into the land between its appearance and soundtrack. This is an SNS free spin, and unfortunately, it is the worst one out there. It's a smaller model, but that's not my issue. This one has trims in the Raven turns that hamper the pacing and intensity. As a result, I only got one flip of my ride. I've heard of others getting more, but that didn't happen for me. Number 13. Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. This aero looper is one of the most iconic coasters out there. Those interlocking vertical loops look stunning over the water. They have strong positive Gs too. Then if you ride in the back, you'll also get some pops of airtime on the three main drops. The ride does have two flaws though. 1. The pacing. The middle section drags on with that long and slow indoor helix, plus the second lift hill. 2. The shakiness. While I'm tall enough to avoid headbanging, the train definitely rattles on the turns and valleys. Up next would have been Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This arrow suspended coaster was famous for the Rhine River drop, and that was one of the most visually intimidating drops out there. It really felt like you'd snap off the track and fall into the water. The rest of the second half had some wild swinging too. The first half was not nearly as intense as you swung through the Bavarian village, but it was certainly scenic and you had one near miss after another. Up next would have been Shockwave at King's Dominion. How you felt about this ride was contingent upon the restraints. They were certainly awkward, but I didn't find them painful when I rode it as a kid. Shockwave had a forceful vertical loop and helix, but what really wowed me was the airtime. As opposed to the B&M stand-ups where you're bombarded by positive Gs that staple you to the floor, there were a half dozen airtime moments on this Togo creation. It was weird being popped into the air on a stand-up, but I enjoyed it. Number 12. Tempesto at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This premiere ride Skyrocket 2 is a fun clone. The swing launch sequence has decent power by the end. Then you have an exciting sequence. You get thigh-crushing ejector airtime ascending and descending the tower. Then it's broken up by some crazy hang time 15 stories in the air. While this one has the comfort collars, I don't think they're too much of a detriment during the ride itself. For me, they just make loading an arduous and awkward task. Number 11. Flight of Fear at King's Dominion. This indoor premiere launch coaster has some fun sci-fi theming in the Q Line station. The experience starts with a respectable launch and 3 forceful inversions. The mid-course does bring the ride to a near halt and neuter the start of the second half, but you build up speed by the end of it, and the final corkscrew is quite snappy and disorienting with all the lighting. But my biggest issue with the ride are the restraints. While the lap bar prevents headbanging, the cars are extremely cramped. Number 10. Dominator at King's Dominion. This is still the longest B&M floorless coaster after all these years, and it's a solid ride too. The 5 inversions are not as snappy as some of the older B&Ms, but they still have some whip to them. I just wish there was a 0G roll. It is my favorite inversion on this type of ride, and it was sorely missed. Then along with the inversions, the ride adds some variety with some high-speed turns and an airtime-filled drop off the mid-course brake run. And even after 2 decades of operation and a relocation, it still runs very smoothly. Number 9. Verbolten at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This Zier multi-launch coaster honors Big Bad Wolf well. The second half follows the former's course exactly. The main drop doesn't have the same visual impact, but it does have some better floater airtime. The final turns are fast and intense, but they do have a shake to them. Then the first half does its own thing. You have a solid initial launch into a themed box. You have some airtime, a very forceful helix, some blacklit effects, and a nice surprise I don't want to spoil here. Number 8. Grizzly at King's Dominion. Now I know many people got terrible rides on this coaster in 2022. In fact, the park is retracking a large chunk of the ride now. But when I rode it last April, I had an enjoyable time. My front row ride was fairly smooth. That allowed me to appreciate all the things this coaster does well. You have a nice setting in the woods, then the layout has a good mix of laterals and airtime. I particularly love the powerful airtime pops after the first turnaround. Then you get lateral forces on the big turnarounds, plus some of the kinked bunny hills. Number 7. InvadR at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This is one of the smallest GCI coasters out there, yet it still packs a punch. This ride really shines up front. The apex of each hill is quite sharp, so you really pop out of your seat. And the ride feels far faster than its posted top speed. That's especially true at night because this is an underrated night ride with its isolated location in a backstage area. But you may want to try in the back as well, because that straight first drop has some sweet floater airtime. Number 6. Griffon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This is one of the best B&M dive coasters. The large and sizable vertical drop at the start has the usual suspense from the holding brake, followed by oodles of floater airtime. Then the first implement has good Gs, but the second half is what differentiates itself from the other dive coasters. The second drop has some more floater airtime, there's another okay Immelman, and then there are 2 more pops of airtime on the way back to the brakes. It is a satisfying finale unlike some of the other dive coasters. Number 5. Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The original B&M Hyper has one of the best settings of any coaster. It's out in the woods and goes over a river at points. It is such a scenic location for a ride of this scale. The airtime is not as strong as the company's later Hypers, but it's still very sustained, particularly in the back row as this coaster has several sizable drops thanks to the terrain. And even after 2 decades of operation, the coaster is immaculately smooth. Up next would have been Volcano the Blast Coaster at King's Dominion. I still miss this unique ride. It was a shame it was removed due to maintenance issues, but I was fortunate enough to ride it several times over the years. This intimate inverted coaster was an absolute thrill. The ride started with a rolling launch that would suddenly engage, and the acceleration was quite punchy. You'd then fly around a speedy turn and get boosted through an inversion out the top of a volcano. It was one of the most exciting visuals of any ride. The coaster then wound around the volcano, treating riders to 3 inline twists loaded with hang time. Volcano was short and a little repetitive, but it was unlike any other ride out there. Number 4. Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This is one of the better B&M inverts. It has massive size, and it uses that to its advantage. The first drop is spectacular. The giant spiral builds a lot of speed and positives. Then the first 4 inversions are ginormous and maintain the intensity. The Immelman is good G's into it, the vertical loop is strong G's through it, and the Cobra Roll has some violent and wild snaps. The mid-course does slow the train down significantly, but the 0G roll still has some hang time, and the final corkscrew has a mild whip to it. And outside of the transition into the mid-course, it is still running smoothly. And along with all those elements, you have some good visuals rocketing through the woods and past the occasional snowbank. Number 3. Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. The Rocky Mountain construction conversion of Hurler is an ejector airtime machine. This ride has 20 airtime moments, most of which are strong bursts of ejector airtime. The highlights are the triple camelbacks on the outward leg that offer some delightfully sustained airtime, which contrasts nicely with the rapid pops. Then the coaster mixes in a few inversions, most notably the unique barrel roll down drop. While it doesn't have the speed of the 2 coasters ahead of it on this list, it certainly beats those rides in the airtime department. Number 2. Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This intimate multi-launch coaster impressed me more and more with each ride. I love how diverse this coaster's elements are. The initial launch has some punch, and the 0G winder has outstanding hang time. But the pacing and intensity really ratchet up on the swing launch sequence. The bunny hills offer some powerful bursts of ejector airtime, particularly going backwards. You cannot see that ejector coming. Then the giant spike offers a stunning view plus weightlessness. The top hat delivers powerful ejector airtime for all, particularly on the drop in the back. The giant outward bank has several seconds of airtime. Then the 0G stall is one of the best inversions out there, with the inverted airtime, near misses, and disorienting dive towards the ground. Then you have some low sections to showcase the speed while blasting you with positives. And all of those forces are experienced with just a freeing lap bar that lets you be thrown about. This ride is a rush. And coming in number 1 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. This intimate giga coaster has a case as the most intense coaster ever built. Everyone talks about the turn after the first drop, and rightfully so. It is a gray out moment for most and a blackout for some. But that's not the only insane element. This layout hugs the ground, which is an odd choice for a coaster this fast. This leads to some forceful turns and violent transitions. You change direction so severely that you actually get airtime from the maneuvers. Then you get more traditional airtime on the first drop, which is one of the best drops on any coaster out there because of its size and steepness. And the camelback under the lift hill has some powerful ejector airtime. It may be the best airtime moment in the entire park. The more I ride this coaster, the more I love it because I know there'll never be another ride quite like it ever built again. So those are the top 20 roller coasters in Virginia. There are several elite ones depending on one's tastes. What is your favorite coaster in the state? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this countdown, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.